People used to think that even then, like, and I know this is like 50 plus, but I do want to say we're talking energetics here too, right? So it's not just like they used to say, like, oh, whatever's in the ovaries, that's what's in the ovaries, and that's it.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, and there's still the energy still can continue on even in your with your adult children.
Mm.
How many times do you see that as the children get older and then now there's these conversations that happen with mom and with dad and it's like, oh my gosh, and it like changed their world, like for both sides,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
That's a form of generational healing.
Mm. Hey everyone, welcome to Unapologetically 50 Plus. My name is Angela. So, this is part two of the two-part series on holistic healing for women 50 and beyond. If you didn't see part one, go check it out and then come on back and check out part two. All right, you guys, let's get this conversation started.
So
Yeah,
that's something else I would say that could be supportive as well.
Right.
thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
I'll be right back.
Okay. So, what does now we talked about because you probably have already touched upon this,
Hmm.
but when we are talking about detoxing, I know there's detoxing the food, what you eat, you know, maybe detoxing with herbs. But what about detoxing as I guess for Black women, especially over 50, that's physically, emotionally, and energetically before we start holistic treatment.
Hmm.
So, because you kind of touched upon it just, talking to Nikki right there, but is there anything else, any other way or ways that we can detox that physical, emotional, and energetic before we
Yeah.
start our holistic, treatments or, just going down that holistic path?
Yeah. Okay, so I would say to really, okay, understand that this whole time that we've been talking, we've been detoxing.
Mm, okay.
Okay. I'm breathing. I just cleared out and detoxed respiratorily.
Mm,
Okay. I'm actually sweating. Like when I get into the intuitive stuff, I sweat sometimes. So like I just detoxed.
okay.
Okay. So I wanted to say that because some people tend to think it needs to be this great big to do when it comes to detoxing, but it doesn't. Now, can you do a concentrated time period?
Mhm.
Yes, you can. And I want to say that because for some of the like trendy detoxes out there, some people experience really uncomfortable symptoms, like
Mhm.
really uncomfortable symptoms. And so there is, and so when I say that, there it could be like digestive upsets, it could be sleeping pattern disturbances, it could be rashes, it could be all of that, right?
Right.
All of these are ways that the body is actually, yeah, it could be potentially like getting rid of stuff all at one time. It's dumping, and
Mhm.
there it's called a Herxheimer effect. So I did want to let people know that because sometimes you can even run a fever, and it can feel like a body ache. So it could feel like flu like.
So that's if you're doing a physical detox, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, and I will say that some people, even with the physical, because you're a whole being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some are going with a physical detox, but there's a spiritual component to
Okay.
it. So, like, so it's some of them are playing, it's all of that together for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I will, no, but if you're doing a very strong physical, like this is just why I'm doing it, you might experience the Herxheimer effect, is what it's called. And some people will call it Herxing. And how you know that that's happening is because, like I said, you'll get all of this, like, it can feel really uncomfortable. And then after a couple of days, sometimes 3 days, usually they'll start to dissipate if you continue on that regimen, whatever one you're choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I like making sure that the pathways are open so that if you're stirring up stuff internally and it has nowhere to go, so that's what you're feeling is actually an immune system response.
Okay.
So where things were probably cocooned, literally biofilms, were cocooned in different tissues and different areas of the body, like with these detoxes, now you're trying to clear that out and the immune system has activated. And so that's why I was saying there's this fever, there's this body aches, there's like the digestive system upset. Some people lose their appetite, like all of that stuff. And so if you can stick it out, some of them just go ahead and stick it out. Some of them like reduce it so that it's not as uncomfortable for them. And then I will say that that's more definitely more physical. The emotional stuff and the mental emotional ones are things such as like it could be like a tech detox, right? Or even a silent, say you do a silent retreat or a meditation retreat. That is a form of detoxing as well. And you'll go through the herxing, quote unquote, because of like all the rapid thoughts. Oh my God, now I'm sitting here and now I don't have anything to do. I can't look at my phone. I can't do this. Like, and then, so like you really get uncomfortable. But then when you stick it out,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like peace.
Yes.
So so let's think and imagine like we have a jar, like a mason jar of sand and some water. And then you did this that sand and water, they already kind of separated out, right? Like, so like the sand's already kind of at the bottom, the water's kind of there. Everybody has their place. And then here comes this detox that's like, comes in. We just shook that jar. And now all of it's like, where do we go? What do we do? Everybody's intermingling that wasn't intermingling before. And so like, and then as it continues though, it starts to settle out, right? Now, the difference is when it's something like a detox, there's a pathways that's open in that jar, which can happen for some people because those pathways are not as clear and open. It kind of just resettles in the jar.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's where it is that you, like some people, I'm like, do you sweat or glisten, as I call
Right.
it? Is that happening? Like, also, how are the bowel movements?
Mm-hmm.
Are they every day? Are they actually formed and full? Is there pain or is there not pain that
Right.
happens before, during, or after? Also, during that time frame, there's some that are perimenopausal or
Mm-hmm.
already in menopause or postmenopausal. And so you'll get the effects like urinary patterns might change as well, right? So like all of those are detox pathways, quote unquote. And so if they're not necessarily open and optimally functioning, then there could be some more discomfort, if you will. But I said that in the beginning about the detoxing just with us talking because I want people to just understand that it's a day-to-day thing.
Okay.
Day-to-day thing. So what can you make sure on a day-to-day that you're optimally clearing out toxins, physical toxins, emotional toxins, mental toxins. It's assessing the environment externally and internally. We respond to our environments,
Right.
right? This is why there's like those programs that say, who's around you? Like, some people they cannot leave a facility if they're going to the same place that influenced them coming in, right?
Mm.
And Dr. Mario Martinez he's really cool. He like studied centenarians and they did this whole study where they took a group And so you want to talk about detoxing, right? Like I'm telling you, watch your friends and who you're talking to and around, right? So people make the memes and the reels thinking that it's all funny and he about constantly talking about your body ailments, right? And all the appointments, doctor's appointments and all the tests and everything, like it's a very like that's focus of conversation for so many.
Mhm.
Dr. Martinez tested it and took the people, they did all the blood tests and everything, so they had their baseline, took them out of their environments and they had them somewhere else. They didn't change their food or anything. People's blood markers changed for the better.
Oh, because they were out of that negative
And they
negative environment.
so okay, so here's what this is how I look at it. I look at it as if people want to talk about like belonging and community, right? Like it's really more about assessing in that type of external environment, what do you want to belong in? Like asking yourself, what is it that I would like to connect with people on?
Okay.
Mhm.
And then that type of assessment can guide you, right, into the groups, the communities, the people, like even if it is family and some people are like I ride or die for my family, okay, maybe it's 30 seconds instead of like a week. You know, like but
Right.
like seriously, because if it's perpetually repeated and then that's your way of feeling like you belong to a group or community
Mhm.
is through that thing,
Mhm. Mhm.
it could actually support you in behaviors that's going to continue. I want to still belong with these people.
Mm.
So even if it's not changing the people, it could actually just be simple as changing the what you talk about or what do we go do. So Nikki, if you know that the emotional eating is one thing, perhaps just your team of people, maybe y'all find like a painting activity
Mhm.
or something where you still feel like you're connected with someone, right? And then the emotional processing that can happen though through painting, through art, through a somatic experience.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? And so,
Absolutely.
so like it's finding that it's those types of environments and just seeing like we're in a great big petri dish, and in that petri dish there's medium. That's what the cells feed off of. And that's what Dr. Bruce Lipton saw. They put the same stem cells in different petri dishes, but the medium that was in the petri dishes, they saw that those stem cells actually grew to what was in the medium,
Mm.
what was in the dish.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
it proved that actually environment played more of a role in how the physical body will present itself.
Mm.
So that's that link that I was saying with the authentic expression of oneself and boundaries that I was talking about in the beginning.
Yes.
Does it make sense now? Like it's kind of like
Mhm.
all coming. And that is holistic in the way of it's addressing all of these aspects of a whole person. And when we can bring them together and it's not necessarily positive or negative. Like I try not to actually use that language because some people feel like, oh, I don't want to say that because that's too negative. Oh, I don't want to say that because it's too positive. And I'm like, it's just neutral. I just want to be aware of it happening. Because then if we, once again, if we can just be aware of it and acknowledge it, then we can address it. But the more you repress that, it's not that you're repressing that, you're actually repressing yourself. And in Chinese
Mhm.
medicine, when there's like that movement, the chi flow that's supposed to move, but when there is repression, is squeezing, is starting to stop it from the outside, we're slowing that flow down. Yet it's gonna now keep building on each other, keep building and building and building. And then that's where it is that we start to see the expression of stagnation and repression. It can come out in the form of tumors. It can come out in the form of cysts. It can come out like right in all these different ways, polyps and whatnot. Excuse me. But when we can actually try to open up the pathways, give the body what it needs for that flow to happen optimally, then that's where some of it, like the immune system now knows. The natural killer cells will really start amping up. The biofilms that can cover tumors start breaking down so that the immune system is more effective. Right? Like, so could there be outside help? Yeah, it can. While at the same time becoming familiar and honoring, like, ooh, where have I been repressing myself?
Mhm.
So then that means that there's this potential that I could actually open up. Where can I open up that flow? And simply by opening the flow, the blood can come through and it's bringing oxygen, it's bringing minerals, it's bringing nutrients, right? To
Mhm.
all of these areas. And so when it's that authentic expression of oneself, it is, yeah, like, where are we opening? Where are we closing?
Okay.
It makes sense. We didn't, we, if we can, I'm totally okay with time. If I don't know about you, Nikki, I
How
don't
are
know about
you
you,
on
Angela,
time?
and I know there was a bunch of questions. So
Oh,
like, I'm sitting here
yes.
like, ooh.
I'm gonna have you back on, Denicia. So don't think this is just a one and
Okay.
done. This is not one and done. This
This
is
is
a
this is
conversation
good.
that can, I mean, it could be a number of episodes because this is such a deep conversation that we have to realize that it's not just about the physical, make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure I mean, that's very important. Make sure you're,
It is.
eating the right foods and blah, blah, blah. But it's about that emotional. It's about who you're around. It's about, what are you telling yourself? How are you speaking to yourself? So it's all of those things that come into play. And we forget that because, especially in America and the Western world, where it's all about what's the diagnosis?
Yeah,
You said, how can we treat the symptom and not the cause? So
right.
Yeah.
sometimes the cause is because, I'm in an environment that is emotionally unhealthy for me.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So, and like you said, the chi, the energy flowing, it's not flowing because whatever's going on in my life is blocking that. So this
Right.
is not like a one and done conversation. But I do, Nikki, did you have anything you wanted to ask her before I
Um,
ask my next one?
no, I'm just soaking in
Taking
all this
it
gem she's dropping.
in.
Wow.
So, speaking on, who you're around and the kind of the scenario you gave, Denicia, how does trauma, both personal, and I know we've talked about generational trauma for Black folks, affect our physical health? And what holistic practices can help release it?
Okay. So for those who are not necessarily familiar with the generational trauma and how that can play a role here, if we think about, I'm going to go physical biologically first. So, whatever it was that your grandmother may have been experiencing at that time, she was encoding information to you. That encoding of information happened biologically in informing the cells that were in her ovaries, of which case one of those follicles, had went through the whole rigmarole, and then all of a sudden there was conception, and then boom, there was your mom. And your mom is like, I got this information. Like, my mom hooked me up with this information, let me know how to survive this, and this. Right? So now I got to make sure that my baby knows this, and therefore is now encoded into her ovaries. And then boom, here you come. Right? Like, and you're like, heck yeah, I could deal with slavery, I could deal with Jim Crow era, I could deal with all of that. The caveat is that in some ways it didn't catch up Newtonian time. So sometimes what we may be experiencing, it comes in a different package, but the effect feels the same.
Mhm.
So then when it comes to addressing this, right? It's one acknowledging that it's similar energy, different packaging. And then addressing the energy. When I say this, I'm talking about this wasn't just slavery, right? It's not that. What it was removal of choice.
Mhm.
What it was loss, right? It's abandonment. It's those greater issues. So then what happens then is as you're experiencing going on in your life, anything that might feel like my choice was just ripped away from me, you then might carry and respond in very similar manner as they did. Because energetically is similar. Like I said, just different packaging. And so then what I like to do is one of the exercises that I like to incorporate is when that stuff is actually happening like in your time, it's seeing like, holy guacamole, I am responding in this way. One, I know I have the tools to be able to navigate this because I wouldn't be here. Remember that encoding, survival of the fittest, baby, you fit, right? So you have the tools. And I think some people just, that's the thing is it's navigating with the tools and they may not feel like they have it. And so some even then start going into almost like a meditation in a way or so it can look more quiet and it may look more like having a picture of a loved one there or simply just envisioning them or simply just feeling their energy that's there, candle lit or whatever. And then almost like inviting their spirit to come and speak. And I'm going to tell you that it's energy. So it's not just your blood lineage. So, because you could be informed by other ancestors. And so if they're coming in and you're having that conversation with them, seeing what information they may have for you. For others, like another way is actually, I like to call it like, okay, so you know how like you have a lot of the parents, this is what is one of the things that they say. I'm just trying to protect you, baby. Just trying to protect you. I did this because I'm protecting you,
Mhm.
right? Someone else did that for you too. The thing though is that they protected, quote unquote, based on what they had and what they knew. And so therefore, when it comes to ancestral healing, healing means coming to wholeness, right?
Mhm.
I like to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to chat with them and be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing what you did. Thank you for giving me that information for me to even become aware of it. And that this is what is going on in my experience. Notice, I did not say that it was happening to me. That's another slick form of disempowerment and another way that others can manipulate because it happens to you. And I think that's very key, especially in light of what is happening right now. And what I am seeing, I don't know if anybody else is seeing, but what I am seeing is actually, once again, similar energy, different package.
Mhm.
People literally feeling ripped, like they're just being like there's no choice.
Mhm.
Someone is literally coming in and just saying, "Yep, it's done. It's gone."
Right.
Right?
Right.
Simply based on the way you look, your age,
Mhm.
where you live,
Right.
right? And what I'm seeing is people starting to internalize that and taking it in the way that it's personal. So it's almost like a, and when I say that, I'm talking about like it's as if the weight of who they are as a being is based on that and based on that person. And that can lead to repression
Mm.
of the self. That repression can then turn into depression.
Mm-hmm.
That can turn into, like I said, that flow is not happening. So, what other health concerns and physical conditions can be popping up for some,
Mhm.
right? So you could see that it is that pattern. Like it's it is seeing similar energy, different packaging. But when you go into that type of practice, like that type of healing ritual of the sense of like, thank you so much for equipping me with the information, right? To celebrate them, to celebrate you. And then you're now saying, now I'm going to add my twist to it, right? Some people used to think that even then, like, and I know this is like 50 plus, but I do want to say we're talking energetics here too, right? So it's not just like they used to say, like, oh, whatever's in the ovaries, that's what's in the ovaries, and that's it.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, and there's still the energy still can continue on even in your with your adult children.
Mm.
How many times do you see that as the children get older and then now there's these conversations that happen with mom and with dad and it's like, oh my gosh, and it like changed their world like for both sides,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a form of generational healing.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
It's to me it's like it's how can we also allow ourselves to be open to those different perspectives and where it is that we could see that it is just that it's perspective
Right.
and taking ownership of your role in it, you know. And I know that like with a lot of the kids and with the grandkids and stuff for you all like um I think it's yeah, like because I'm millennial, older millennial. I think they would consider me or something like that. But like, I see it even happening like with my bonus daughter. I see it with the other little ones and stuff like that too. It's just like we all play a role to the collective,
Yeah.
right? And so then that ancestral part is like just because someone's not in this physical plane, they actually still are playing a role. That's the legacy. And so you can have create that conscious choice of what do you want to add into that legacy.
Okay.
So
Yes.
that's does that answer that question of like addressing like ancestral healing? And that's just one way. There's others that do that'll go like more Akashic records. They might actually go past lives. They might actually do all these other modalities and other techniques. And
Okay.
so those are definitely applicable as well
Mhm.
for some that feel called to it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I just loved Black Panther. When I saw that whole scene, I was like, I feel like I was in the movie theater going because I saw like I just saw. I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing shamanic. Like I was like, oh my gosh, he's so. So it's like, and I was like so excited, and my husband was like, that was not it. I said, because you don't know, sir.
Right.
I was like, that was all like shamanic practices, and I'm like they do this. So like so I was like, this is just a visual representation. You don't really see it like big
No.
in like a big production like that. And so I was like, I was so stoked and excited when they did that in Black Panther. But like that's a total example of
Yeah.
ancestral healing.
Okay. So let me ask you this, since you kind of touched upon just now how excited you were about that. So for you, what role does spirituality, ancestral wisdom, and intuition play in your own personal healing journey?
Ooh, a lot. Like a lot. I like even it so even with spirituality and like I had to acknowledge that I was even intuitive. um I didn't know this until much older, doing my own studies, that like even the little things of when we were younger, my mom would tell us, because I go busting in there like, I have this nightmare, I gotta talk to you about this, and she'd be like, wait till the sun up and then call your grandma. Like, and I'm like, what? And you as a kid is like, you gotta get it out, you know. But then as I grew older and I like realized, I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, I would talk to my grandma about some things or whatever, and someone would say she's dream oracle. But she didn't call it that. She didn't really, but she was tied to like it. I think she got spooked a little bit in the sense like it, because she was religious. So like, that may have played a role in it.
Mhm.
But I will tell you that like when she passed, like that was one of those things. Like I tried talking with her about it, but at that time, uh, at her age and condition and stuff, like it wasn't really sinking in. And so then that's when I was like, you know what? We can do this energetically, Grandma. I know we can. And so, like, that's one of those, she's one of those people that I just kind of like call on for direction because, and I know that it's in our lineage because she's my grandmother. But my mom too, she is like, she's like, I say some things to people and I'm just like, she goes, I just know it's gonna happen. And so it's like I just feel, I just would hope and see that other people can see that like when it's spirituality, like spiritual versus religion are two different things.
Right.
And I feel like sometimes when people repress their own gifts because a religion, quote unquote, might paint it one way. And so that to me turns into a repression of the authentic expression
Mm.
of you.
Say that again. Say it one more time. No. No.
Like it's just another form of repressing the authentic expression
Right.
of
I
you.
love that.
And I love I like just expanding in myself in the sense of I love dabbling in different things. And learning about them, I allow my intuition literally to kind of guide me if there's questions that I might have about something low, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask for some support and some help, but I have to also be willing to be open to, you know, what that looks like and in what form. And I mean, it answers like a lot. So that whole acknowledging what healing is in those little moments that sometimes we're looking for something else, that's exactly what it is that I realized for myself.
Okay.
Because I personally am I'm a seeker. I'm like looking for all the different things. Like I want to learn and that I too miss or I don't acknowledge what's here in the present. So a lot of the practices for me have to bring me to the present.
Okay.
And just kind of like, okay, what's going on like around me? Like not too much forward, future, anxiety inducing thinking, or not too much back, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I didn't kind of thinking.
Right.
But- so it's like, how can I bring that? And then the wisdom, like what can I bring into the present? Right. Like from that. So it's like all of that's there and plays a role. If there's things that I think about, like and so my family's from the deep South. They're from Mississippi. So
Okay.
you can like kind of imagine almost like paranoia,
Okay.
the like somebody having to sneak
Hmm.
and do things,
Right.
Mhm.
right? Like we got to go underground. And in this landscape of social media and all of this stuff where people are kind of showing like they want to show a lot, right? But you got this like deep rooted, not one person need to know everything. Like, and because,
Right.
right. So it kind of like I see that playing out even for myself.
Hmm.
And but once again, that's when I can go into thank you for that knowledge. Thank you for that insight. This is what I'm going to choose for right now to bring, once again, belonging. Some won't change a tradition because they might feel like they won't belong anymore to that family.
Mhm.
So they'll actually keep themselves stuck just to feel like they're a part of. And I know we're talking family, blood family, but that does happen with anything. It's like, oh, the black people.
Right.
Oh, black women. Oh, the 50 plus. I just named three different types of subcultures that somebody might want to belong in. And with each one of those comes the types of behaviors, the beliefs, and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you don't, I have no idea what that means though to you, Nikki. I have no idea what that means to you, Angela.
Right. Yeah.
So, because that conversation didn't happen, people tend to go in like, well, I think this is how they would act. I think this is what they would do. I think
Right.
this is. So you start to adopt that based on an assumption,
Yeah.
right? So this is also a part of that environmental assessment is having open communication as well about like, yeah, what are we about here? Like
Right.
what do we do? What do we like what do we believe? What do we stand for? Like and are we cool with that? You know, like all together, can we accept that? Or do we need to change some things or whatever? And so and I think like that's a big thing that tends to happen also is just assessing of the relationships and it's relationships with the self. But when you really know yourself and get to know yourself, then you can that relationship you see it with other people. And it's also a relationship with the self in the sense of the whole organ systems. Those relationships within each other is
Yeah.
there as well.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. That was good. So I'm going to ask just a couple more because, again, I don't want to keep you ladies on too late. And this is an amazing conversation.
Yes.
So, how can we reclaim our health and wellness in a world, in an environment, in America in particular, that often neglects our unique healing needs? And do you think, I could also throw this in there, do you think Black women in general, doesn't have to be over 50, but do you think we have unique healing needs in America?
No, I don't. That was my gut reaction to that question.
You don't.
No, I think that I think we could use, there's so many different things going on all at the same time with that. And one of them being some of these parameters, and it's coming out now more openly. Some of these parameters of what is health was not for us.
Hmm.
I will tell you that I'll use this one as an example of like when it comes to food and weight and whatnot. Um, they found, and this has been documented actually for at least a couple decades, I believe, that because of trying to push people into a certain BMI,
Mm.
the methods to get there. So someone can say, well, this is your BMI and then this is your there's this diagnosis of hypertension, might be type 2, might be hyperlipidemia, so high cholesterol and all of that, right? You got to lose some weight.
Mm-hmm.
The methods to get there actually worsened the conditions. And it's because of the amount of stress that was put on someone to get to a certain weight, quote unquote, that actually may not have actually applied to their own body, their own, taking into account their own history, like just genetic history, like all of that, right? And so they did find that over time it was worsening those otherwise chronic conditions because there was such the method to get there. They couldn't sustain it. So it would be hypervigilance to get down to a certain number and then go up. But sometimes actually more than the original. And then hypervigilance to get down again and then went up again. So that's another form of shocking in the body that actually made those conditions even worse. And so like I really do believe that yes, we do want to take a look at the blood markers, the bio blood markers and all of that. Just also understand that that presents a snapshot. When it is a blood serum, it is a snapshot at that time. They can change so quickly. And so whenever I might recommend, if someone is presenting with something and I'm like, oh, you know what? I tend to go for things that'll give me more historical information. So I might use tissue instead, right? If they have a blood serum test, that's great. We can look at that and then get some insight from blood serum and also hair tissue. So like the tissue provides some history, like 8 to 12 weeks of history of how the body's excreting, right? And processing. And so it's just like, you can hyper personalize in ways, and there's so many different labs out there now that could you do this. There's blood tests that'll give you insight over the microbiome that's in your gut, but through blood versus doing a bowel sample. And I just think that like, so this is something that's been bothering me for a while. So I'm gonna tell you all this. Okay, so if you remember, I said people really may want to look at how they're speaking over other people.
Yes.
Isn't it kind of spooky that it's like black women are the top to die in infant deaths? Oh, black women are top to die for blood pressure. Black women are top to die for cancer. Black women. So look at that. And then I'm like, that's interesting. What's playing a role in this? And what can you do when you have people who believe that enough that they are so fearful that their sympathetic nervous system is so fearful that it's even biologically affecting the way that they could see things and the way that they can make
Yes.
choices and all of that, right?
Right.
What can you do with someone like that?
And see, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I just have to say this because that has always bothered me. When you hear it on the news,
Yeah.
I don't even watch the news anymore, but you used to hear it on the news how, Black people in general, they're they're most likely to get blah, 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 or blah,
Yep.
blah, blah. And it was just play. And I would tell my husband, I said, you know what? Maybe it's just me. I said, but I have a problem with always hearing that. We can't always be the most at this.
That, yes.
Everything negative is the most that, Black folks or this or this or that.
Mhm.
That used to just, so I'm glad you said that. I thought I was just going crazy. So I'm glad you said that.
No, and that's where I want to ask, like, okay, so tell me, like, what do you mean by this? Like, what's happening here? And when we talk about belief, so then what do you hear sometimes from a lot of those? Like, they'll be like, oh, well, they're saying I'm gonna get high blood pressure anyway.
Yep.
So then the behavior changes to almost like fulfill that.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, Okay. So to go to Angela's question about like Black women, are there unique needs? And I want to say that everyone has unique needs because everybody is a different body, period.
Mm-hmm.
And to assess that environment that someone is in, yes. Do I feel like also because of portrayals of black women and black men and black people that yes, are some people's defenses up just simply having a conversation with us? Yes. Do I think that's happening? I do. Yes. Do I think that's everyone? No. So I say this because I have seen a lot that'd be like, okay, I just want a black doctor, a black therapist, black blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you understand though that quite possibly you're going to go see someone that actually just learned the same thing as someone else that came in a different package?
Absolutely.
So that does not necessarily mean that you're going to get what it is that you're looking for. But I mean, you'll get the person that's in a package that is black, but remember a lot of that stuff, they learned the same thing. And so that's where you do have the people that and the other patients that are like, oh, I thought that I could go see this person. They didn't really listen to me. They didn't really honor like what I was saying and all of that. And it's like, what did I say before? Similar energy, different package.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So that's where you want to ask. When I think about my care team, what are these characteristics and these qualities, right? Of that's on the team that I can work with. And I'm hiring them. I'm interviewing them. You are interviewing these people. Sure, you might have insurance and they might be telling you that's your applicant pool. So look at that. That's simply your applicant pool. And it's like just kind of go in there and seeing like, okay, and you are so intuitive and can feel when things are great and when things are off. Honor it. Even if you're not quite sure, can't put your finger on it, right? Nikki, you said it. Like, I just felt off, like something and you found out later about all the other experiences with other people. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the stuff that can happen where you're really just having to ask, like, what is it that I'm actually seeking? What am I really seeking? It's not just, I'm guaranteeing this. It's not just, oh, let me get rid of this diagnosis. It's not just that. It's addressing what was influencing and what was playing a role as well. So it's like, okay, I'm really looking where I'm supported in the boundaries that I have for myself. I'm really supported in, okay, the direction of the food, like navigating these emotions because the food thing is just a byproduct, right? So so this is why you can hear those stories of like, oh my gosh, they ate all organic and then yet this happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then you hear the emotional stuff that started coming out later.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like people that experience traumatic experiences didn't really know how to process or deal with it. And then there's a chronic condition or like a tumor or something like that formed. And so it's like, oh, there we go. That's it. That's what we got to address right here. And like, I mean, like, I don't know what is going to happen for myself. That's just something that I try to look at. Okay, if my body's doing this, then there's something that's going on that I'm not quite, it hasn't come to my full awareness yet. But I will say I kind of dabbled in it when a breast tumor was found for me. And I remember being like, I could say that it was the patch because I did. That was the one thing that was different was the patch. Did that show up for others? Yes. And the type of tumor that even came out, they were like, do you have family history? I'm like, no. At that time, we didn't. My grandmother got diagnosed later, like years and decades later.
Mm.
But like I was a teenager. So it was very strange for them. And then I'm like, spiritual, faithful person. I'm like, nah, this didn't happen by accident. Like there is a reason. When you really look at it, it's like I just went on that patch, felt like I didn't have a choice because this is what my mom and my pediatrician were like, here, you want to do this? Like which of these birth controls before you go off to school? So I didn't really feel like I had any control over that, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And then like, oh, I was the one that like tried to care for all these other people at school because that's what I did when I was at home, like all these things, right? Oh, now that put things into perspective. Like so it was so now I'm in going and seeing one of the therapists and stuff on campus. Like it was those elements that I really needed to address and really look at was another now I mean I was on a watch like doing ultrasound seeing if it was going to come back because a resection needed to be done and then it was once again another opportunity of am I doing this whole overcaring thing for other people and why am I doing that, where there were moments when I was thinking like, okay, I'm the bigger girl out of the people that I'm around, like these guys don't even like me like that. Like it was a lot of things. So my behavior was my behavior coming out because there was something that I was actually seeking. And there was another, and that did get me questioning that because why? A tumor was found on the other side
Mm.
during one of my checkups. So it was like, okay, so there's something else. Like, so it's when we can start to kind of go in there. We may not like it. We may not want to admit it. And we might, and I think that because when we admit that type of stuff, there's like this whole level of vulnerability. There's a whole nother level of like potential shame, guilt, resentment, like all of that, right, is there. But to kind of just be in that place of accepting that this is here, like, and it's in your awareness. And I think that for Black women, like, going to your question, Angela, and like the unique needs and whatnot, I think like it's very important to really see, once again, connecting. What are you connecting on?
Yeah.
And that includes with the care team, right? It really does. It includes the care team. Some of what they look for in terms of health, and if it's really pushing you like so much far out and it creates more stress to maintain that, and the weight thing is an example, then that is insight. That's telling you like that physically is not the thing that is for you.
Right.
I wanted
And,
to lift up. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I just wanted to lift up something that you did mention that I just learned this year, just talking to other survivors of, that may have had stage 4 cancer. And you just brought it up that you can interview your care team. I had a lady tell me about the doctor that threatened me. She was like, oh, she was on my list that I interviewed and she was a hard no. And I said, wait a minute, you interviewed your doctors? That word choice. I did not know that I could do that. I thought this is the doctor they said I was supposed to see. This is the doctor that was supposed to do my surgery, and that was it. I wish I had known. Like that lady told me. She said I interviewed 3 doctors because this was my body that we're talking about. I was like, wow, you can do that. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that out. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know. Might be other people that just don't know we have a choice.
Well, and the choice thing, if you want to talk about, like, think about generationally. Like I said,
Yeah.
a lot of things that have been done and you didn't feel like you had a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on someone's experience, they'll be like, I had to do that job. I didn't have a choice. Right? Like, I had to go and do this. I didn't have a choice. Other side, parents, Mm-mm. I'm telling you what to do.
Hmm.
Don't question me. I tell you what to do. You do it. You don't have a choice.
Right.
You're you're 3 years old. What you mean that's not what you want to do? You're gonna do what I tell you. Little ways that we did not think or feel that we didn't have a choice. Similar energy, different package.
Yeah.
And so when it comes into like now, like in this form of healing, it that's a huge thing is to recognize when you do have choice. And you can I call it conscious choice because then that's where it is that I'm like, okay, it's not running on autopilot like where that it like the autopilot choice could have been based out of something else, like it could have been grounded by something, some other energy, versus like the conscious choice is, oh, if Nikki really wants to do, what would Nikki really want to do, like right now, right here, right now, right, like,
Right.
and not not mom, not grandma or grandma. I don't know what you want to call yourself, but like, like, but like not employee, not manager, not like Nikki.
Hmm.
And that's where it is that I think too, when it comes to navigating like the boundaries and whatnot and burnout, is looking at where it is that where your identities lie.
Yeah.
That's good.
Typically, the choices get made based on the identities
Mm.
and then the meaning of that identity. But when you can just be like, Nikki, it's scary because it's stripping you naked.
Oh, yes.
How you know that you're making choices from an identity is when you say, oh, I want to do this so that whatever comes after.
Mm.
So when I hear people say, oh, no is a complete sentence, it's like, well, what you want is also a complete sentence. Yeah, because that's just what you want. But you may have to reconcile and become aware of those instances where you were told, You can't always get what you want."
Mm.
And isn't that something that is told to Black women, but it's actually also perpetuated by Black women speaking to one another?
Yes.
So, what is it that we're actually speaking into existence for each other as well? Because it all plays a role. So, we can keep certain things alive,
Hmm.
right? Where we can change them and we can create something new. And it actually brings, there was a show. I have not been able to think of the name of this show before, but I remember watching it, and I was watching it with my husband, and it was like all these Black women. They were all entrepreneurs and stuff, and I was interested because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm Black and I'm a woman, right? So I was like, oh, let me just see what these ladies got to say. Like, that's cool.
Hmm.
And the thing that stuck out to me the most was that they kept repeating, "I have to work 3 times as hard as a Black woman." And I was like, and it irked. Like it kept my
Hmm.
physically was cringing. And 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 they were kind of like in agreement with each other. So remember what I said, environment. And
Yes.
then what are y'all feeding into the flames, right? And it just kind of like goes up. And then I said, why is this? I was asking, I was like, this is bothering me so much. Why is this bothering me so much? And it clicked. And I confirmed it with my mom because I spoke with her about it. I was like, Mom, I know that I like my growing up and schooling and stuff was kind of like different for Black kid, right? So I'm just like, but I don't recall you ever telling me that I had to work harder because I was Black. And she said, I didn't. She's like, I knew you were smart. I just had to make sure they knew that you were smart and they weren't gonna play no games. But like, but one of the things when I was watching that show was almost every single one of them, guess what happened? Not only were they telling each other that, their moms were telling them that.
Mm.
Their business coaches were telling them that. So we literally, you are surrounded and fed in a medium, a petri dish of nutrients. But what are these nutrients fertilizing?
Right.
Right. So when we talk about like Black women and we talk about health and all of that jazz, it's like it is where we can acknowledge that there is this system that actually was not built for us. It wasn't even built for women in general. Okay. And at the same time, it's like seeing who's there interviewing on your care team. Historically, choice may have been removed in your life experience. Choice may have been removed. I think that happened just for almost everybody because we were all infants at one point and we had to rely on someone else. Like so, like that is there. So if that is the case, we're just bringing it to awareness and then realizing like, I do have a choice now. Like this is great. And so like just kind of acknowledging all of that in the sense of like you were saying, like, are there really unique needs? I just think that it's every person. Like every person has their own pattern. They have their own journey. And the care team I look at is through what lens is that person on that team looking at me? Like through what lens? What's filtering their lens? Like they could be a +1 or a +2.75 or a -2.5, right? But either way you put them on, it gives you a whole different other view.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I see tools. The tools being in people or modalities or whatever, they are to provide a different perspective. And as long as that perspective honors that I'm a unique person, like there's only one Denicia, and you can show me through your lens like something else that I could be taking a look at, then sweet. Awesome. And I think that's the difference between like the holistic health practitioners and functional medicine also. Because when people are looking at their labs, some may not realize this or know this. But when those labs, when you look at them, that reference range is based on who took that test by that lab.
Right.
So if Quest Diagnostics, I mean, you don't know because it's all mixed together, but if Quest Diagnostics just happens to be a whole bunch of like middle-aged to older white men, and then here comes your blood sample and it says it's above, how is that correlating, right? If LabCorp says, oh, I mean, for us, I mean, we got us a lot of Latinos and a lot of Black people here. And then we got this reference range. And that's why lab to lab, those reference ranges change and they look different because you have to think about statistics. Like that is probability, it's statistics. Okay. What they're showing you is based on what we have blood drawn. This is what we see as normal. Normal doesn't mean healthy. Normal means the frequency. So we see it this often that this is what is now normal. And then it can shift the ranges. That's what that means when you look at them. And so then when you have functional medicine coming in, and functional medicine is like, hey, yeah, that reference range is a little bit too wide. We actually see that for the thyroid to function optimally, the TSH needs to be between this range. So this is where it is that you'll see functional ranges varying from your typical blood serum ranges. And even sometimes interpretation between them, you can see that happening as well. Like you can take a blood serum and they'd be like, well, we're not really quite sure. But in the relationship between the white blood cells, you can see like, oh, it might be like more viral or it might be there's parasites, there might be like this, and those are the things that may not be seen. But once again, it's lens. It's who's got the lens, the goggles,
Mhm.
and what are they looking at it, and how are they looking at it. And I think that is some basic, like very basic medical stuff that we just didn't know. We didn't learn it, right? And so we just kind of go in, we do the blood test, and that's just it. And they're like, oh, this is off, this is high, this is low. Take this.
Yeah.
And there's not really reassessments either. Like, that's another thing. So it's like, oh, I was telling my students the other day, I'm like, because we're actually, I was teaching them about like different types of assessments, and so they can get their patterns differentiated. And I was like, yeah, on that medication thing, most of the time they're used to just listing them in a dosage. I said, here's the kicker. You ask them, when did they start taking it, and why are they taking it, and who prescribed it. And then that's when you start seeing, I get the like from people, I don't even know why I'm taking this.
Mhm.
Oh
Mhm.
man, I've been taking this for 10 years. Really? Did they? Why? Like, what? But did they check? Like, do you still need? Like,
Right.
so, and so those types of things, like, are some of the stuff that I think that like people just have to be aware of because they shift it into habit. I just get it refilled. I just go and do it. Like, and then what ways is that system supporting that? Oh, you can just set your refill on auto.
Mhm.
So a lot of the things that have come out that's to make it quote unquote convenient may actually need you to become more consciously present with it,
Mm.
right?
Right.
To be aware of what actually is going on. If you feel like, I want to see what happens if we reduce the dose, but because it had been on auto refill, you
Mm.
could have been on that for a whole year. But perhaps at the 3 month mark or the 6 month mark, a reassessment could have been done instead. So, like, it's even those little things that they've made to make it, like I said, quote unquote, easier. And now I know that some people would say that's barrier at, because of appointment times and people needing to work and all of that jazz. And so, like, fortunately, telehealth has made that a little bit easier to be able to navigate. So that is an option too for people. So I would say, like, really take a look at that. I don't know what's going to happen though under this administration with that because I've been seeing some warning signs. But for right now, use it. like, for right now, do what you do and use it.
Exactly. So my final question, unless Nikki has something she wants to ask. No. So my final question, if someone has never explored holistic healing before, what is their first steps what are the first steps or step they can take today?
Asking yourself why you even want to do it.
Mm, never thought of that question.
Yeah. It's a big question in that I don't think people are aware of why they're really wanting to do it. And there's so many different answers. Like, you could, I have done some calls with some people that literally they didn't continue in the sense of treatment with me,
Mhm.
but they said, I just needed to know I wasn't crazy.
Mm,
So when you ask, so it was really just me consulting, like literally trying to see, like, are you going to continue to reduce, like, go and do treatments, like series of treatments and stuff. It was literally just the mental, emotional aspect of someone listening and validating something that she already knew and felt that was healing, quote unquote, for her.
mm, mm,
So that was an example of when sometimes the healing is occurring and you're not seeing it. right? So, of course, I'm not pushing anymore. Like, are you sure you don't want to do these treatments with me? Like, I'm not, because for her, that was enough. That was it.
Right.
So, that would be my first thing, literally, is asking yourself why. What are you really looking for? And you don't have to stay in that space where it's so long that you're, why? But like, if you can just call out like something being like, oh, I just want to know what my options are.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. That's enough. That's really enough. Because as you start to take the action steps, other parts of the discovery are going to come into play.
Okay.
But it's through acting on it that the other parts come in and you start to refine what else you're looking for in your care team.
Right.
Does it make sense? So it's like, oh, it
No.
started with I want to know what my options are, and then now it's like, okay, so I want to know what my options are, and this,
Yeah.
and I do want to say this too because I've come across this as well, is that oh my goodness, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to all of a sudden realize like, oh, I asked for this, I got this, and then I kind of want to change that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I say that
Yeah.
because there are those that are like, especially like the spiritual people who are super manifestors and they're like, I got this, like, and then they kind of stick it out, quote unquote, because that's what they asked for.
Mhm.
But it's like, okay, you got that, but then also if you wanted something else, go ahead. And then even for those like the religious ones that are like, well, I pray for this and all of that, and it's like, okay, now pray for something else. Like
Exactly.
you can actually change it, and it is okay to change it, because why that awareness that you wanted something different actually is a sign that you evolved. And so therefore what is currently in that petri dish,
Mhm.
you've already used it, and it means that there's another form of nutrient medium that's needed right now.
Okay.
That's it. That's all it is. That is really it. It's totally a okay.
That's amazing because I never thought about that. Why do I want it? Because you'll go in there and sometimes like I have a acupuncturist, and first time I met with her, she was the same thing. She was like, so what are you looking to get out of this? And at first it was like I just need some pain relief, because I have lower
Mm.
back issues. And she's like, okay. And then as time has progressed, I'm like, okay, so now I want to work on my stomach issues, my digestion issues, and so forth. So, but it was progressive, as you said, it was progressive. So,
Yeah.
Miss
And it'll
Nikki,
evolve. It's just really realizing that this is like, it is a journey. It's all a journey. And then, like, we might have those like micro flags of celebration steps, like, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then kind of still surrendering to this is a journey, and we're evolutionary beings, and this whole authentic expression, we're going to see this a lot. I mean, we've already seen dabbles of it, but it's about to be really, really big, right? And at the same time, people being like, well, I thought I was being my authentic self. And it's like, were you really? Like, but that's where the body will signal you,
yeah,
and I think that that's like really key to really be paying attention to, and especially with the height and the growing use of AI. And it's like we are visually looking at things and unable to tell the difference of what's real and what isn't.
right, yeah,
That is also us
yeah,
asking us where are we being real and where we're not.
Mhm.
And where we might mentally be able to say that we are, the body can tell us otherwise.
okay, nice. Any last questions, words, anything, Nikki, that you want to?
I definitely just want to say thank you for this space. Thank you, Angela, for the platform. Thank you, Denicia, for just your knowledge in those gems. I have felt empowered. challenged, open, safe, all of that. And I just want to say, I appreciate you both for that. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome. Yeah.
you're so welcome. The virtual
Um,
hug.
okay. So Denicia, I don't know if you sent me your information. I want to make sure I put it in the description below. Maybe you did. I'll check my emails again. I
Okay.
want to have it in the description. My head
Yeah, tell
sometimes
me
all over
too.
the place.
Did it or not?
But I'll put it in the description below because are you taking new clients or are you
Good question.
Yeah, I'm actually so it's so funny you say that because I have been thinking about like how am I being pulled to support people right now? And like I am taking people doing like VIP intensives in a way just because of what we were doing here, Nikki, you kind of like experienced it. Like that's that type of like evolution and just space that I want. That's the intention, right?
Yes.
And the changing that happens. But then you have your next steps, right? Like, and then also like a concierge holistic well-being consultant service. So it's like, hey, DM me your questions. Like you implemented the stuff, Nikki, like, and you something else came up, like send
Mhm.
me a message, video or audio or whatever, and then I'll respond, right? Like, so that's coming out.
okay?
And then also just like tools, like little tools that people can use in training. That's my perfect playground adventure park. So that's like all split up in little areas, but that's what I'm working on right now to just kind of be loading in trainings that's opening up in April.
Okay, nice. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I will get Miss Denicia's information in the description below, and please check her out. She sounds like she has a wealth of information. Shoot, I
Yes.
might sign up for some of her stuff.
I would love to see y'all. Please let me host you on my perfect playgrounds.
Yes.
So thank you guys for joining us. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification, leave a comment, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.